Mysteries of the Sacred Universe, Chapter 4, The Solar System in 3 Dimensions. This video is inspired by presentations based on the 4th chapter of Sadaputa's book, Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. The opening presenter was Prishni Sutton, followed by Kala-Sarupa, who has master's degrees in particle physics and mathematical science. Let's do this. From studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sadaputa concludes that the flat horizontal circular plane in space, called bhu-mandala, has a close relationship with the ecliptic plane. That is, the path of the Sun with Earth in a central position, tipped by 23 degrees when compared to the poles and equator. To get a better idea, let's look at the same thing from the point of view of an observer in India. The square he is standing on represents his local horizon. From his view, the plane of the ecliptic is tilted. Thus we see that bhu-mandala extends over his head and also beneath his feet. The Bhagavatam says on a daily basis the Sun is moving along bhu-mandala and the ecliptic plane clockwise on a daily basis. Yet on an annual basis, the Sun moves overall in an anti-clockwise direction relative to bhu-mandala. The Bhagavatam solves this issue by comparing the movement of ants on a potter's wheel from different points of view. One observer standing outside of the wheel watches, and another observer is standing on the wheel. This is relative motion. In quite a number of my other videos on this channel, I bring attention to the parallels Sadaputa draws between the concentric rings of bhu-mandala and the epicycle orbits of the planets of the solar system, with Earth at the centre. In terms of millions of miles, bhu-mandala's rings quite closely match the orbits of Mercury, Venus, Mars, the asteroid Ceres, Jupiter, Saturn, and even the barely visible Uranus. But that conception isn't new. For example, Tiruvenkat Ramanujajaya Swami aligns bhu-mandala with the Earth-centred solar system of 16th century astronomer Tycho-Brahe. Now, in conventional European history, it wasn't until 1653 that the astronomer Christian Huygens calculated the distance from Earth to the Sun, and Uranus, along with its approximate distance, wasn't even discovered until 1781 by William Herschel. So it's not surprising that medieval Vaishnava astronomers didn't make the connection between bhu-mandala and the solar system in terms of scale. Yet the scriptures clearly speak of an ancient intelligence of Indian origin. Of course, converting the ancient yojana to a modern length is essential to Sadaputa's theory. Let's first look at the historical context. The Greek astronomer Eratosthenes is credited with being the first European to measure the size of the Earth using latitudes. He noted that the Sun, when directly overhead at Syene, cast a shadow of 7.2 degrees at Alexandria. Knowing the distance between Syene and Alexandria, he could calculate the length of a degree of latitude, and from there estimate the circumference of the Earth. There were 2 sizes of the yojana used by ancient Indian astronomers. Aryabhata used a yojana of about 8 miles. Bhaskara used it as about 5 miles for the astronomical text Surya Siddhanta. Remember, there's over 600 years difference between them. Now, the hasta was measured from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger of an adult male and equals about 18 inches, similar to Greek cubits. Since the shorter yojana has been assigned to be 16,000 hastas, that means such a yojana is about 4.6 miles. Note that there's evidence that hastas were used in the Great Pyramid of Giza and other famous ancient buildings. A long yojana is about 32,000 hastas, but those hastas were slightly smaller than the ones used in a short yojana. Altogether, the longer yojana comes to 8.59 miles. Another way of measuring a yojana is how far an oxen can pull a royal cart in a day, on level ground, in one direction. Bhaktivinoda Swami said that an ox can walk like that for about 17 miles a day. A long yojana is half that, because it means 8.5 miles away from the oxen's starting point and 8.5 miles back. Note that bhu-mandala compared with the modern solar system sizes works best at 8.53 miles per yojana. Very close. Although the Bhagavatam does not explicitly say that the planets orbit the Sun, it does contain references giving the Sun a central position in the universe. For example, the Sun travels in the middle of the universal egg. The Sun is in the middle of Antariksha, middle space. And the Sun divides the directions. And note that even that when the Sun is placed at the centre of the solar system, the ring oceans of bhu-mandala follow the so-called Titius-Bode law. The solar system is nearly flat, just like the Bhagavatam's bhu-mandala is. In comparison with the size of their orbits, the planets move relatively small distances away from the plane of the ecliptic. The Bhagavatam also lists heights of the planets above bhu-mandala. Sadaputa concludes that since bhu-mandala represents the plane of the ecliptic, the heights above it are not physical distances between the planets, but represent the furthest distances the planets move from the ecliptic plane. For example, when the moon is listed as higher than the sun, it is simply saying that the moon's orbit goes that far above the bhu-mandala ecliptic, and it is nothing to do with physical distances. The moon can be physically nearer to the Earth, but still higher than the sun's path from our point of view. It might help us to imagine the sun's ecliptic path as it moves through the centre of the zodiac belt over a year. That is represented by the yellow line in this image. The Bhagavatam's heights of the planets have something to do with how far each planet is seen to move above that line. In his book, Sadaputa presented a table. See here. We see that for the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars and Jupiter, the height list in the Bhagavatam roughly agrees with the modern heights, although for Saturn the modern height is much larger. Sadaputa argues that the heights are a three-dimensional aspect of the solar system map. The fact that the heights are all one side of the ecliptic, when they are actually moved both sides, is a feature that makes sense only in the planisphere version. It seems the Bhagavatam is giving a composite presentation of both models. Well, thanks for watching.